I was literally just out on a bit of a session with my mates, and my friend was telling me all about TikTok. This was, probably about 6 years ago, and he was explaining to me about how it all works and how you could just make one post and suddenly go viral. And my first decks, I think, 93, right? And then I quickly upgraded them and got the SoundLab DLP ones, which were pretty shit, but good to learn on, right? With the belt drives, very poor build quality. But if you can mix on those, you can mix on anything. I remember DJ Magazine reviewing it when it was on one of their top 100 dance music records of all time, and they said, although it may sound like they've recruited a hod carrier to do the lead, it was actually, and they named the synth that they, it was cool little track.
Welcome back to the Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame episode with myself, Clara Griffin, and Big L. Today we honour a modern phenomenon who completely broke the rule book and united generations of electronic music fans, from dropping heavy final bangers in his dressing gown to tearing up the main stages of Glastonbury and Creamfields. His encyclopedia of music knowledge and pure infectious passion turned him into an internet's favourite raver and clubland legend. We welcome Fish56Octagon into the Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame.
Hello, Fish.
Welcome,
Hello.
Fish.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So we would love to know, when did you first discover music and club culture?
Okay, so I can actually pin it back to a very specific thing. I was on a family holiday when I was probably about maybe 12 or 13 years old, and we watched in the evening an episode of Inspector Morse called Cherubim and Seraphim, in which they touched on the illegal rave scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Oh, wow.
and I remember my parents were watching it and they were absolutely aghast, going like, this is absolutely disgraceful. And I was watching it thinking, this looks absolutely like sick, right? So as soon as I got back from that little family holiday, I started, kind of working out how I could kind of tap into this. And the easiest route available was by listening to pirate radio. And then, as soon as I started listening to pirate radio, you start hearing all the tunes and you start hearing the names and things. And I developed an interest in records. So I went up to the attic and my dad had some old, you could only describe them as gramophone players, They didn't exactly have that big horn thing on, but one of them didn't have a pitch control and played 78s, which was like the old format from back in the day. And then the other one was like a Mission hi-fi deck, but it had a plus or minus 4 pitch control on it. So I got those two. And I got an old camcorder mixer that was for people making home movies, not those sorts of home movies. Well, they could do, I suppose, but they were just for people that were editing.
Mix and match. You were doing mix and match.
And there was no headphone. There was no way of doing a preview or anything like that. And I went out and started buying some records. And I started off going to HMV and Tower Records just because they were accessible. And then as I listened to pirate radio, and you start hearing adverts, and then started reading DJ Magazine and reading Eternity Magazine.
All the little shops were.
Yeah, exactly. You discover where all exactly that. You work out, and luckily near where my parents lived, there was one called Bluebird Records in Bromley, where I used to go in, and they sold. They had house music in there, but they also sold hardcore and stuff of the very early, jungle and drum and bass was just starting to come through. And I had a bit of an interest in all of this. To start with, I was only really listening to the old school hardcore. So the Prodigy would have been the big act in that area, but then the stuff on Production House like Ace and Trip to the Moon, and all that kind of Kicks Like a Mule, The Bounce. So that was sort of like my induction, and then I started getting into listening to pirate radio and getting into stuff that was a bit more, I wouldn't call it really headsy, but stuff that was a bit more sceney rather than the stuff that was getting played on the radio.
We recently did Nick Hawk's Kicks Like a Mule. We recently did him.
Yeah, he's cool. He's involved with the Prodigy and
he's
XL Recording.
Yeah,
I chat to him occasionally on Insta because he produces as well, and he makes house music, and he sends me his music and I play it on my channel.
When he goes out, he plays disco, doesn't he?
Yeah. It was quite the stuff that he's done so far has been quite on a sort of funky, what I'd call funky house side of things, right? Those are the records of his that I've played. I got into that, and then I started going to the record shops, and then you get the MA1 bomber jacket, and started going up to London and going to the different shops and going to Remix Records, and then I was a little bit too young to be going out raving back in those days. I was desperate to go, but I was at that point I was probably 12, 13, 14 years old, so my parents were a bit like, no, you're not doing that. And it was like, when you're that age, if you don't have a job or a stream of money coming in or an older brother to take you, it's a bit hard to actually go out. So I knew all this stuff was going on, like Labyrinth and you know, all these raves and stuff. It was a little bit out of my...
Amazing for a young lad to, you know, suddenly it was a scene you were really interested in. So
yeah,
it got you, didn't it, quite early then?
It was just the music itself was super interesting, the way that it was all made of different bits and pieces of other things to create something.
Yeah, samples, the
samples and the beats and everything. And I actually got really into making music myself as well, because I had a Commodore Amiga back in the day, which is that computer that used to play like Lemmings on, and I got some software called Octamed, and it was very basic, but some people actually still use that stuff now. There's a guy called Pete Cannon, who's like a jungle breaks producer, who still uses that old technology that I started on. And I got really into making music, but I mean, I'll be honest with you, it was pretty pants, right? And actually, almost everything I've ever made, I've kept, right? And at some point in the future, I might release it, but at this point in time, it would probably be lethal if I
mean,
did
the
that,
early acid house stuff was basically made with 2 machines, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 909, 303, very basic.
Very basic.
And
but them sounds came out of them machines, didn't they?
Yeah, totally. It was, there was very little in the way, but that's part of what drives the creativity sometimes, is if you're using stuff that's very restrictive. You know, when you get to a point now where you can find or create any sound that you can think of in your mind, sometimes it's easier to get writer's block and to be almost constrained by the huge amount of creativity. Whereas right at the start of the scene, it was very much, you know, basic equipment and you know, quite limited sounds, and it was, you know, the struggle was, could you make something interesting or catchy with this quite basic stuff? And when you listen back now, some of those records have absolutely stood the test of time. Voodoo Ray, right? You know, you listen to it and you're like, wow, still innovative. Right, yeah, it does sound old, but it's still you can hear how innovative and catchy it is. And also, there's a million records from that era.
A great record's a great record.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and a lot of them have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. We have started giving awards to certain tracks because there are some great ones out there. Last week, we gave to my old friend Richie Malone for Move Your Body. You know, expansions. We're going down that route as well, giving the actual anthems, the ones that still get played,
and they still get sampled and remade.
Yeah,
you know, today.
I think that particular track has been charted 4 or 5 times and remixed 4 or 5 times. So it shows you what a great track it was.
Yeah, 100%. I got, so that's kind of my early induction into dance music. I was into the old school hardcore. I got into the early part of the happy hardcore scene. And then that scene quickly, around 94, sort of changed and became very kind of kiddie audience focused, because it was just, you know, attracting a younger audience, and it got sort of quite bouncy and stuff. Yeah. And at that point I was like, right, okay, I'm looking for something that's, I don't want to sound like a snob and sound like more sophisticated, but something's got a bit more depth to it, right? Yeah. And I started listening like more and more to house music, but I also got a bit into the jungle and drum and bass at the time. And then, like later in the 90s, I started getting really into trance and techno. I've always liked kind of all of the scenes, but at different times.
Electronic music, full stop. You love it. Yeah. You like some of the guests we got today. We've got Chris Paul from the Orange.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was the happy hardcore scene. You know, he made that pretty famous in central London. MC Shorky White, who's basically, you know, from that scene, that happy hardcore scene, and DJ Hype. You know, so they're all in. We're sort of moving different directions, not just in one direction. We're moving lots of different, because there's lots of branches to this music, isn't there? It's not just one genre. There's loads of genres that come off of it.
Lots of different scenes, all of their own culture, all of their own legends, and you know, you could be the biggest legend in one scene, and in the other scene, no one's heard of you, and it's a really diverse, you know, kind of pot. And I really like so many different genres. I'm honestly so excited. And one of the most brilliant things that's come out of this highly unexpected late life DJ career is that because of my channel, it was always just about the joy of playing all sorts of music. So it could be a hard techno track that's unreleased, or it could be the first techno track, recognisable techno track ever, or it could be a garage tune or whatever. And in my live sets, depending on where I'm playing and how long I've got and what sort of crowd I've got there, you know, I get to play all sorts of stuff in my sets, and it's a real gift actually. And it's, you know, it's probably something we'll touch on a bit later in the interview when we talk about, you know, your ideal club night and stuff. But it's there's so much out there to explore, and I'm learning every day, and it's you
never stop learning.
No, never.
I'm 66 this year. I'm constantly learning. So yeah, you never stop learning. So it's Fish Octagon. Where does that come from?
I'd honestly, I'm 5'6", right? So some people have made that assumption, which is, by the way, the average height for a fully grown adult female in the UK, right? So yeah, but it's nothing to do with that. I was literally just out on a bit of a session with my mates, and my friend was telling me all about TikTok. This was, probably about 6 years ago, and he was explaining to me about how it all works and how you can just make one post and suddenly go viral, and you don't have to spend ages building your audience and stuff, which is partially true, but also actually it turns out not quite as true as it sounded at the time. But it said it's got an algorithm in it that will quickly work out what you're interested in and start showing you stuff that's, it will show you lots of different things, and then it will whittle down and narrow down your interests, and in no time at all you'll start seeing stuff you're really interested in. And my big interests are, obviously music's like the biggest one. Yeah. Cars is my second one, right? And I was like, okay, well, I was just more curious. I was wondering how quickly is it going to suss me out? So I set up an account, and you have to put a username in. And I literally just put in like the stupidest shit that I could come up with at that moment in time, because I'd obviously been on the session with my mates that day. So I just put in Fish56Octagon. That was it. That's the whole story.
Really?
The funny thing is when you start scrolling it, within no time at all, it has whittled down to your interests, but it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It was like, there was like lots of ones where it was like, a plumber showing you a really good technique for doing a line of silicone down the side of the bath. And the thing is, right, I actually do loads of DIY. So although my main hobby, recreational interests are music and cars, right, the ones that I was watching for longer were the ones where it's traders like sparkies and plumbers and groundwork people and stuff like that.
You're learning from it.
I was learning from it. So I'd watch a car one and I'd probably watch 75% of it, more than most.
So it's picked up on that and it's sending you all that stuff.
Exactly. So it was literally just, I was just getting that, and I've learned, I put in a whole staircase after that, glass and oak.
You built your own house there.
Yeah, I've done loads of projects around my house that I would have never had the confidence to take on as a result of watching informational videos on social media. But that's social media for you.
It's amazing, social media. I mean, that's like the whole reason why, this is content, isn't it?
If you can use it positively, like use it in a positive way of, learning from it, it's definitely a good thing. It's definitely a good platform for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you hear so much about negativity about social media, and it can be a force for good and it can be a force for bad. Yeah. It can bring people together and unite people, but it can also unite people that have got, nefarious interests and stuff.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a force, and it can be a source of great negativity, and it can make people feel like insecure about their lives. And
do you get a bit of that? You get a bit of trolling on yours?
Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. Yeah. Everyone gets
We've been quite lucky actually. We've not been sort of, because we're giving awards and we're talking about the industry, so there's not that, I think someone mentioned something about me, but we haven't had much of it really yet. But I've got no doubt it's coming.
No, you can't do anything about that. People have got their own reasons for being negative. Often it's
their life, isn't it?
It's a reflection of how they're feeling about their life and the majority of it, the vast majority of it, is very positive. And I've met people and actually made real life friends through social media, and I've networked and I've spoken to people that I would have dreamt of having contact with, and exchanged messages. I'm not like making lifelong friends with the top DJs and stuff, but I communicate with them and tell them how much I like and respect what they do. And sometimes I get a little mutual thing back, and I'll often get unreleased music from them to play on my channel.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which is amazing. And then when I'm playing my live sets, I've got some really hot stuff as a result of taking the time to share my platform with artists, big and small artists. Some of them it's about spotting people that are small artists, but just making absolutely fantastic music and sharing my platform. And a lot of people have actually got signed as a result of me just playing their music on my platform. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I played at a UK Garage Night in Amsterdam, and they booked me because the resident DJ there was a guy who 2 years ago I'd played one of his tunes, one of his demos on my channel, and it got signed on a really good label, Shall Not Fade, out of Bristol. And he put my name into the hat, and I went over there and I played a UK Garage Night. So it's kind of like
it's giving back.
There's a little bit of karma there. I don't really believe that much in fate, but I think like if you try and help people and you do good stuff.
What I often say on this industry of ours is an extended family. We'd never have met if it wasn't for this industry. And that's what it is. And it generally is a good feeling amongst everybody in this industry.
All the people that are part of it, definitely. There's a lot of love in this industry from what I can see.
I completely agree with that. It's very positive. I mean, you do get, it's a business as well, right? And you can get that sort of like backbiting type thing, but you get that in any industry at all, because people have always got their eye on what their next move is and stuff like that. But I find on a personal level, like honestly, 99.9% of interactions, I just find it, if people aren't really interested, then they're not going to watch. They're not going to talk to you. They're not going to watch, right?
Yeah,
it's generally a very positive and supportive and friendly thing, and it's beautiful to be part of that, even in just the tiniest way, which is what I am. But one thing I've noticed is that the scenes have all got their little groups. So I was playing last year. I played at 90s Fest, and I was on the Hard House stage, and I was there, and there was like Fergie and Yomanda and Lisa Pinup and Anne Savage, and they all know each other because they've all been doing it for decades. And you go along, and it's almost like when you go and it's like someone's birthday round, like a relative around their house, and everyone's really pleased to see everyone, and to be just a part of that in a tiny way, and for people for them to want to talk to me. And
extended family. They bump into each other, here, there, and everywhere, and it's nice. It's often people I ain't seen for a while. Hello, mate, how are you? It's good. And now doing this, obviously, we get to interview these people, which is really good.
Yeah. It's lovely, and it's the same. It's the same with drum and bass as well. You go and play a drum and bass event, and you're in the artist room, and they all know each other, and they're all chatting and stuff. And it's just a nice atmosphere, and it's lovely.
So you're getting gigs in all the different genres, you are, aren't you? So you're getting a bit. I mean, it's not often a drum and bass gig then you go and do a house gig. It's unusual, isn't it?
It's highly unusual, actually. And it's generally the sets that I play. I tend to do a little bit of an eclectic journey. It's not all over the place. I'll start off with some house, and then I'll move into some garage, which they often flow into each other. Right. And then from there you can move into some stuff that's like a bit like hard groove, that's sort of similar to the 4/4 like garage type stuff that carries that energy. And then from there you can play a little bit of like more kind of techno or trance type stuff, and then maybe finish with a couple of drum and bass tracks. And if you're on a festival stage or doing your own club night, and you've got an audience that sort of know what you're going to do, then it's not a surprise. But if I'm playing at a techno event or a drum and bass event, I'll just stay within that genre, because that's what people expect.
Horses for courses, isn't it? You play what the crowd is, don't you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But it is. I won't lie. It is unusual to be able to play a techno event and then to play a drum and bass event.
No, there's not many people doing that.
But it's hard work doing that, because you have to really be like, for a start, I'd like to play at least sort of 25% of stuff I've produced myself when I'm playing a set. Less so right at the very start, because I wasn't kind of good enough at production to do that. Whereas now I can make flips, edits of my own productions and play them in my tracks. Yeah. So if I'm playing, if I'm playing a drum and bass event, like I played Worried About Henry last month, and I made like 5 tracks to play for that, like myself entirely. And drum and bass is really hard to produce in, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet. There's a million people out there that can do it better than me. Yeah. But for me to prepare for that gig, I've got to go and I've got to make my own edits, make my own music, especially for that gig, and to make sure that I'm current and that I'm doing flips of current tracks or edits of current tracks and stuff like that. Yeah. And then you have to go off to all of the current DJs and go, look, have you got anything new that you want me to play my set and stuff? And a lot of them will share their music, and some of them don't want to, and that's cool, because people like to keep it so they've got a point of difference for their own sets. But because I've got my platform on social media, I'm blessed in that a lot of producers will share their music with me. So when I play a live set, I can have some stuff that's really exciting that that you can't just hear everywhere, and you can put it together. But I've got to stay on top of house, garage, techno, trance, drum and bass, and that's quite a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of music.
I love it though. I absolutely love it, and it's nice. It's interesting.
So this leads into one of the question that I always ask is. We're going to give you a choice here, because you're into so many different genres and you play out at so many different genres. Give us your favourite DJs in each genre.
Okay, so it varies. It varies from kind of time to time. I mean, I think like in house, you've got people like we'll always go back to the people that I enjoyed seeing loads in Ibiza. You've got people like Cole Cox, like Sasha, James Abela, Paul Walford, guys like that just where they'll play. Some of the stuff that they'll play will be headsy. I mean, Sasha will play quite a headsy set, right?
He's always playing new music.
But it's also all about the dance floor. So it's like you'll get a little bit of an education, but the tracks are always made to get people excited and get people moving. In garage, you've got. I mean, at the moment, garage bassline sort of area, you've got acts like MPH, Gentleman's Club, YUQT. And then you've got like some of the acts that were there when I was going to places like Bagley's in the 90s, like Tough Jam, Cole, Tough Enough Brown, and like those guys that were just that are still active now. Those would be the ones that I'd be excited to see. There's loads of them. I mean, in trance, I've always liked. There was so many of those big names from back in the day, like Mike Persian and Ferry Corsten, that are still active now. Yeah. But for now, like the sounds that I'm enjoying at the moment are like Mark Sherry and David Forbes, because they are managing to reference the old sound. They also can produce stuff that's like got a bit of a techno feel to it, but you'll always hear little snippets in the sounds of references to to the old tracks when I was most active in the late 90s, that was the time when I was going out the most, right? Going out like almost every weekend and going to...
As a punter?
Yeah, because I was DJing, so I was DJing, I got my first decks, I think, at 93, right? And then I quickly upgraded them and got the Sound Lab DLP ones, which are pretty shit, but good to learn on, right? With the belt drives, very poor build quality, but if you can mix on those, you can mix on anything. When I was 16, I got my Technics, and I've always played at like house parties and little events like that.
That's the apprenticeship, isn't it? That's the apprenticeship, basically.
It is. I was the resident DJ at my student union. That was back in vinyl days. So for a couple of years there, it was like they used to rotate. So there'd be house music one week, and then the next week it would be R&B, and then the next week it would be whatever. So whenever it was house music, I was on. So it was probably like once every 3 or 4 weeks. So then I'd play for open to close. So it's like 4 hours there of playing for 80 quid fee. Right, so it was like, it was enough to go out and buy a few records, but it wasn't massively helpful for playing like 4 hours. But I did that for a couple of years at my uni, UEA Norwich. But then as I developed, developed my career and sort of started doing something a bit more serious, my music production had got a bit better by then, but it was still pretty crap, to be honest. But I used to
You're constantly learning, as we said earlier. With everything, the DJing, the going in the studio, everything. You learn every day. The more you do it, better you get. That's why it works, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, look, there were a couple of tracks that I wrote back then that I played when I first started DJing professionally, right? But most of it wasn't really up to standard. But like back in. We've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, haven't we?
Yeah. But listen, that's what this is, a conversation, And it does, you give us lots of names there for lots of different genres, which is good.
Yeah,
we like that.
Well, like with techno, like we always used to go, there was a night we used to go, I mean, the sort of techno that I used to listen to in the 90s was sort of different to what people consider to be techno now. Yeah. So we used to go to The End, which was Mr. C's club in West Central Street.
Yeah, it's gone now, isn't it? Now that club's gone.
Yeah. Do you know what? I went there to do some filming outside it, just for something else.
This is where it was.
And they were knocking it down as we were there. And the guy that was demoing it actually had gone in and taken some photos, and he airdropped them to me, and I actually used them in the end on a video. But we used to go and see like DJs like Carl Cox used to play there on he had an ultimate bass night, and then there's Final Frontier, which was at Club UK in Wandsworth.
Club UK, my mate owned that.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. That was an interesting place.
Yeah, Chris George, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Because it had a bit of an interesting history, that place. But we had some good nights in there. We used to go to Final Frontier. They had a Saturday night. We actually had a member. I should have brought it with. We had a laminated member card, right, little black, and they used to have those blue bottles of Club UK branded water. They even tried to open one in the Midlands, didn't they, in Ipswich or something, right? I'm not sure if that went as well, but the one in London, that was Buckhold Road. That was where I kind of cut my teeth. There, I used to come in here. Very different in those days.
Well, we were talking to Lohan earlier on about here. How they've had to fight off all the builders and everything else, because the culture, they want, they just want to take the whole of London, don't they, and build houses everywhere.
They had a lot of trouble here a few years ago, and I'm glad to see that this place is still here, because so many of those clubs that we cut our teeth on when we were younger are all gone. Like Bagley's is gone, and the Cross, like Turnmills, like Leisure Lounge, The End. Like Fabric's still going.
Yeah, it got a new lease of life.
They had some trouble, didn't they?
Yeah,
it was the same thing with licensing.
It was the lashback from it that people didn't like that whole culture was trying to get rid of it. It's history, isn't it?
I was astonished that they managed to fight back against that, but I was delighted. We used to go there when it was open, when it first opened. And DJ Hype had his night. That was his players' night, wasn't it? That was
that was every Friday of the month.
And then
wasn't
there was Torrent at Fabric, which was you'd have like Sasha there, and then you had like Craig Richards was involved in it. Those kind of foundational tech house guys. And then there was like Fabric was really culturally important though. Like the CD Out series that they've done. There's like so many of them absolute classics. And then in drum and bass, being the last one, like for me, like Dillinger's just the man, right? And when I first broke through and I was playing at Glastonbury, I ended up getting to go into the booth with him when he was playing. We stayed there all night, and then we saw Spy with Loki and Simula, and then 4am crew played afterwards. And I was with my mate. He had to slope off at about 4:30, but I stayed right till the end. And Dillinger was just the absolute man. I mean, it's impressive. Like I've seen.
What about
before.
The Godfathers? like Groove Rider and people like that.
Oh, so like Fabio, Groove Rider, Hype, Andy C. Those guys, just like foundational in jungle and drum and bass.
He's pretty massive at Andy C, isn't he?
Andy C's got to be. I mean, like Andy C's Sub Focus are kind of like at the moment. I think probably around and Chasing Status are in that sort of like top.
I think one of my questions to Hype would be, because they used to go back to back and stuff quite a lot back in the day. So yeah, that's one of the questions.
Yeah. No, Hype's legit geezer. He's always had his own sound.
Yeah.
I've met him a few times. It's a real character.
Yeah. Well, like my friend Chris Paul, who's coming in later, and I said, look, pick a DJ. Who would you pick to come on our show? And he said Hype. He said Hype straight away. Yeah,
he's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
Very good technically as well, with his scratch and everything.
Yeah, he was one of the original guys to just bring that, because he's got his. I don't want to speak for him because you're talking to him yourself anyway. But his musical heritage goes well beyond drum and bass into that.
Well, they all started out playing house music, didn't they? Most of them, the ones that are old enough, they all came, and a lot of them even before that were playing jazz funk and soul and Motown, and it came out of that and morphed into house music and then all the different genres split off all over the place, didn't it?
Yeah, but it sort of exploded like that. But like hip hop's where the scratching thing comes from, and I think that's like I think like, Hype's got some roots in that area, and he brought it into. He was always known for it back in the day as well. Doing that hyper thing. Like used to do that. That was
so good.
Yeah,
no, really good. Let's go back to you talking about your story about your name, where it came from, the TikTok story. How did you then go from understanding about the algorithms to then becoming one of the within the TikTok trend, basically, for those that were for you?
Okay, so I'd set up my TikTok account, and for the first several months I was just watching it, and it was during that sort of COVID lockdown type era when there wasn't so much to do, and I was watching the content at the time, and I just remember thinking, like, no shade to the people that were making the content at the time. I remember looking at thinking, like, I could do this. Some of this content was literally man tripping over in the street, or two people having an argument.
Yeah, there's a lot of nonsense.
There's a load of rubbish on there. Angry man at customer service desk in Asda, something like that, right? And I thought, surely I could be more interesting. So I've always felt when I was younger that I might have had the capability to entertain a mass audience, but I was never ever going to do stand-up or anything. I'd be too scared. And I'm obviously like not mainstream enough to do anything on TV or whatever.
But you love the music, so it makes sense.
And I always loved music, but my other interest was cars. And after a while, I was like, I've got to do something on social media, because I'm spending like hours a day watching it, right? And I feel like I could do something, and you're never going to know if you don't try.
No.
So I thought, what could I do? And I started off doing little TikToks where I was sharing my watch collection, and I've not got an impressive watch collection. I've probably had 15 watches, but only one of them was worth more than a few $100.
I like watches.
They were interesting ones. There was one that was a Vostok one that was a special edition that had been awarded for bravery during the Cold War, probably to someone that shot someone trying to escape from like East Berlin or whatever. But it was, and they all had little interesting stories and reasons why I bought them, And I did all these TikToks about them, and I got absolutely rinsed on the platform. But there was a core of people that were like, this guy's really different, this guy's really interesting, right? And it just gave me that spark to carry on, even though I had one ambition at the time, right? And that was, I wanted all of my videos, when you added them up, to get over 1 million views, right? And it honestly took me probably about like 8 months to get to that point. Whereas, last week I did one that got like 600,000 views just on one video, right? But it goes to show. I then thought I could do my cars, but I had 3 cars at the time. I thought I could do one about each car, but what am I going to do when I run out? And then I hit on this idea of like, I don't actually have to have the car in front of me. I can just show a picture of it and talk about it, right? And I really wanted to do music at the time, but the thing that put me off was I just couldn't see all these young kids that were like going out to raves, being interested in hearing some old guy like me talking about it. I mean, that turned out to be one wasted.
Yeah, how long was that?
Yeah, I did the car thing for 3 years, and I built it up to the point that it was actually producing like a little side hustle income that wasn't bad. It was like the same as what my wife was earning in her job, right? Yeah. Just doing that, and I wasn't doing it for money at all. I had a good job anyway. I wasn't interested. It was nice to do that, and it was good that it was the time I was investing was bringing some return. But that wasn't the reason I did it. I just did it because I liked feeling connected.
I thought you could do better than that was already out there as well.
Yeah, and I like feeling connected to people, and I like getting the feedback that I was doing something that people were finding entertaining, but in a positive way. I wasn't out there doing like It's
quite nice when you get the comments and the feedback. We look at our socials and and answer people sometimes and stuff. You can't answer everyone, but it's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's nice to feel that you're doing something. Whether or not it's like financially remunerative, it's nice to feel that you're doing something, and you're just giving people some entertainment and making people feel happy and taking them away, because life is quite hard, right? Yeah. Take people away from that for a little bit of time. But when I was doing these car TikToks, I thought this is a bit dry, so I always used to put sound in the background, and you can do that. TikTok's got a library of sound, and I'd always just pick the stuff that I knew from the 90s, the trance records, the drum and bass 31 seconds by Origin Unknown or Binary Finery 1998, and people would always go like, "Why are you playing that? Why are you playing all this rave music?"
That's what I'm into.
And I go, "That's what I'm into." And you could see people's scepticism through the comment section. Go, "Yeah, sure, mate." Right. And so in the end, it was a bit of a
Yeah, but car people ain't really dance music people. I'm into cars. I'm into cars. I've got lots of different. An old American car. I've got an old British car, and I've got a couple of Bentleys.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Was that your Bentley outside?
Yeah,
oh, not yet.
No, but but most of Cole Cox is into cars as well.
Motorsport,
but it's not the same crowd, is it? It's a completely different crowd.
Well, I hit the sweet spot of the Venn diagram unintentionally, because I was always putting dance music in my car videos, so you'd get people that just like to listen to the tunes. I didn't realise, right? Okay. And that actually...
How long did that take for you to realise that?
A long time, right?
Oh, really?
And then in the end, someone was like, "I don't reckon this guy even likes dance music." And I was like, okay. So I did a TikTok where I showed some of my record collection, and guess what happened to the views on that? That was like...
Wallop.
Wallop, right? And so straight away I thought, because I'd wanted to do music in the first place anyway, so it then took about another year for me to come up with the idea of transitioning my channel, but that's what gave me the light bulb moment. I was like, maybe people are interested, right? And at that same time, I started getting more and more on my feed of people playing those old hardcore records that I was talking about at the start, Ace and Trip to the Moon and Kicks Like a Mule, The Bouncer, and the more underground stuff. And it started bringing all these strong memories flooding back of when I was, just starting out in my bedroom.
Music does that to you, doesn't it?
Music, and
the music can take you back to a particular place that you first heard it, or it does do that to your music.
Yeah, 1,000%. And unfortunately, in 2005, I'd got to the point where I'd got all of my records and I'd digitise them onto my computer, and I was, I'd given up on DJing, and I started selling them all off to fun trips to Ibiza and stuff like that, right? Yeah, because they were sitting in boxes, and I was like, I'm never going to play them anymore, right? That's it. And I sold my Technics. I got 280 quid for my Technics in mint condition, like 1210s, which I still regret to this day. But and I was like, I just got this spark of, I'm going to start rebuying my records, and I started rebuying them, and then every time I got a delivery through, I'd do a TikTok where I'd open them and I'd show them and I'd play them on my channel, and these by this point these were getting way more views than the car videos, right? And then I went to Boomtown, and I made a couple of videos from there, and when I was actually at festivals, at events and stuff, and the views on that were mega. And in the end, I just thought, as much as it's nice to have this little side hustle income coming in from the car thing, right, if I do the music thing, it's way cooler. And when I made the switch, all I wanted to get out of it, like literally the only thing I wanted to get out of it was, I thought maybe I'll be able to get some free tickets to go to a rave.
That's what you were thinking.
Yeah, or I'll end up going backstage and interviewing some DJs and meet some cool people. Or maybe I'll get to go to a festival for free with a friend or something. And that's all I wanted. And I got one offer like that to go to Drum Sheds, to go to Drum Code, where they were like, if you come in and shoot a video, we'll give you free VIP and we'll give you some drinks tokens and all that. So I went with my friend, and we had a mega thing there, but it wasn't that enjoyable to me because people kept coming over.
So this really must be your dream come true.
Yeah, completely.
Where suddenly you're playing to all these people, and you've always obviously loved the music. That's obvious. That's obvious, plain to see. And then now you're actually playing for the people. It's fantastic.
It's
I like this. I like this story.
It's mega. And the first time that's the one and only time I went to Drum Sheds, and I'd gone in sort of like as an influencer, right? Yeah. And people kept coming over and wanting to talk to me and stuff, which is lovely. I really liked it, but I couldn't quite get into a night out, if you know what I mean, because you don't really want people coming over and getting photos of you when you're in a bit of a
pickle.
Yeah, a bit of a pickle. But by the time that happened, I was already booked to play there later that year anyway for Worried About Henry, where I played a drum and bass set, and then it went from there. I did a club night in Manchester that was a headline show that I promoted myself just with one other guy, and it sold out, well before, and it just went from there. But because I'd had the decks and learned on the belt drives, and I'd been doing it, as a hobby and stuff, and then I'd played at the student union, and I'd never let go of that, right? I had a long period where I didn't have decks for about 15 years, but when you get back into it, it's like learning to ride a bike.
Yeah, you know how to do it.
And I knew how to do it. But the important thing is going back to exactly what you said at the start, the house parties. That's where you learn how to read a crowd, because if you play something people don't like, everyone just leaves the room,
just
sort of thing.
clearing a dance floor is not a good thing, is it?
Keep the energy going, keep the energy going.
Yeah.
And, it's a bit easier for me because I've got different genres to pick from. So if there's like a bit of a slump and I've been playing house for a while, I can step it up to something with a bit more punch in it. Not to denigrate house music's sick as well, but you can keep the energy going by upping the tempo and then moving into some techno when people are least expecting it, and building it that way. And I think the gigs that I did, like, they were good. I videoed as many of them as I could and posted them online, and people wanted to come and see it, and it just went from there. So it wasn't just a novelty thing of, the guy. And that's why I never wore a dressing gown to a gig, because I didn't want to be, people come along and see him and they're like, I've seen him. He was all right, actually.
There's the dressing gown.
Yeah, done it, tick. Right? I didn't want it to be that thing where it was flash in the pan. I wanted to,
Was it just a mistake? You woke up with your dressing gown on and you went on? How did that come about?
My boss had said to me when it all started really gathering traction on social media, because it took me the first 4 years to get to 250,000 on TikTok, and I wasn't even on Insta then. And then as soon as I started Insta, it just started gathering pace straight away, because Insta is where all the people from the industry are. So that's where when I played an old record, like Tough Jam records, suddenly Carl Tough Enough Brown or Matt Jam Lamont would pop up in the comments, and that then made it interesting for people, and it just took off very, very rapidly. And my boss said to me, who's a chill guy, he just said, look, we know you're doing some stuff on social media, and I haven't got a problem with it as long as you're not posting during the time when you should be working. And that shook me up a bit, because I had a serious career and I've got a mortgage and a family and kids, and I put a lot of effort into my career, and I didn't want to do anything that would jeopardise that, but I could also see that this was the gathering pace and was going to potentially lead somewhere. So the next morning I woke up and I thought, how am I going to deal with this? And I thought, why don't I just make my content now? It's like, I looked at my watch and it's like, 10 to 7, right? And I thought, I'll just make my content
moments,
now.
you got to get on that train.
Got up, tried to find my clothes. My wife was still asleep in bed. Went into the bathroom, sat down on the loo, and I was like, right, how am I going to do this? Like, am I going to have to put my torch on, find an outfit? How am I going to do the music without waking my family up? And then I looked up and I saw, it's like a moment. I saw this dressing gown on the back of the door that my mum had given my wife a year earlier, that red one with the black stripes on. My mum had given it to my wife because it was too heavy, and my mum was getting hot flushes in it, and it was too hot. And my wife didn't like it because it was too heavy, and I didn't want it because I thought it looked ridiculous, right? And we didn't have the heart to throw it away because I thought my mum would get upset. So and it was, I think it was around like February or March time, and it was cold. So I just put that on, and then I thought, why don't I just go and make my content? Let's just see what happens. I've always been myself on my social channels. Right? Let's go and just see what happens. And I did that, and that was like, it was already gathering a bit of pace before that, but it just suddenly, because what social media algorithm likes to see is lots of people talking in the comment section, whether it's positive or negative, and there were millions of people going, love the house robe, or like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But either way you take it, right? Because it's the videos are suddenly popping, right?
Different, wasn't it?
So it wasn't, people will look at that and go, oh, it's very clever, the guy's worked in marketing before, it's very clever, it's very contrived. You can't plan or contrive stuff like that, right? You have to, but what you can do is, you can try a million different things, and then this is the marketing methodology, the ones that do work, you go, I'll stick with it, but you also have to recognise when people are getting bored of it, and then see, always try new things. What's going to work next? I've always eaten dried Weetabix, right? That's always been my thing, and that wasn't contrived at all. And I just grabbed them, and then I'm standing there at 7:30 or 7 in the morning doing an hour of filming and then all the editing. I'm just going to stand having my breakfast, right? And you can't eat a bowl of cereal because it just goes everywhere, right? So dry Weetabix was actually perfect for that, right? But that was another one where people are like, and they still say it now, like, why the you eating dried Weetabix? But I've always, it's a convenient, quick breakfast.
It's one of the reasons why I said straight away when your name came up. I said, no, he's a strange fish. I want to have a chat with him.
Thank you. But yeah, that's how it got going. And then and then the challenge is over time is, how do you keep bringing new people in, but without kind of boring the people that were the people that came in to start with, because you can't just keep them. The format of what I do hasn't changed that much. And interestingly, when I do stuff that I consider to be more interesting, often I find that it results in people unfollowing because they just want to see me standing in my lounge. So I keep it fresh with music. I don't just play old music, I play new music. I've now got 19 different dressing gowns, so I try to vary them a bit. I started eating porridge for a bit.
I think as well with you though, you always, with your music, you always tell a story. Like there was one of the videos that you had the Mitsubishi
the candle,
right. And you were talking about the track,
that's
and
right.
It's just your passion as well. When you play music, you can see how much you're into it, and
well,
I think
evident,
that's what people, that's what people love, 100%.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's just
passion always shines through. If you tell a story and you love the music, it will always shine through.
dance music's given me so many of my most treasured memories, you know, the trips to Ibiza, the festivals with my friends, you know, especially Glastonbury, but also I've been to like Creamfields probably 4 times. I've been like 3 of those were as a punch. I went to the first ever Creamfields, you know, and you take those memories with you because especially when you're younger, it's formative. You're discovering who you are. And you're free of the financial and relationship commitment and all that, and you're just out, and it's just hedonism, having fun, and you take those memories with you, and the music can transport you right back there. And when I talk about the music, it brings those memories back.
For sure. You touched on Ibiza. Tell us about your Ibiza story.
Oh, okay. So my grandparents had a villa over there in San Antonio before it was really developed. So I actually used to go there in the 80s, but I was only like tiny then, right?
I was there in the 80s.
That's when you were over there actually doing.
Well, my first year was 1980, but yeah. Started working in the late 80s, 87, 88, but yeah.
So so you've seen the whole thing over there. I went over there when it wasn't particularly developed. I remember there was a programme on TV about Ibiza.
Handy having your parents having a place there. That was quite handy.
It was handy, but I was only like 8 or 9 years old,
okay.
So we weren't like going out raving. But my grandparents went along to Koo once when it was probably back in those days. And I remember there was a programme on the TV about Ibiza that my mum and dad set the timer for on the video. And we all sat down as a family to watch it, but it was all just about the nightclubs and all of that. And they thought it was going to be some tour of the island or something like that. But I'd probably be quite interested to watch that documentary now. That was in the early 90s. I started going over there as a raver quite a bit later than that. I was more in 2005 when I'd got to the point that I was, in my career and I had some decent money. So we actually had enough money to go over there and enjoy it a lot, and stay in decent places and go out a lot and go to the clubs because it's mega expensive out there. And I enjoyed it so much the first trip that I went over there in 2005 that I went back again at the end of the season for another 6 days. But this time I took my wife Angie with me because I'd gone with my friends to start with. Yeah. And then I went every year. And in some years I went twice.
That's my story.
All the way through.
I went in 1980, the first year, early season, loved it so much, went back at the end of the season. Did that for quite a few years, taking more and more people each time I went because I was raving about it, telling people how amazing Ibiza was. And that was pre-Acid House, pre-dance, they were doing a little bit in the Balearic in the mid-80s. But it had already got me without even the scene that I was going to be involved in. Yeah. Little did I know at that time that I'd go on to be doing all these mega clubs.
Involved in it, yeah.
Yeah, things evolve, don't they? Things evolve.
Same with me. I'd never dreamed, and that's one of my most special treasured memories of Ibiza is when I played at High last year in the room that used to be the Terrace, and it's obviously very different there now to how it was when I used to go there. Completely different. But
I actually think the club is a better club. As a club, the space at Terrace was amazing. I'm not denying that. What Alex P created was fantastic, but their club now is actually a better nightclub, isn't it?
I mean, from a technical point of view, yes. But people will always, and I deal with this a lot on my channel. People always look back. The time when you go somewhere and you enjoy it the most, that will always be like the best something's ever been. But I mean, from a technical perspective, like the sound system was never lacking in space.
No, it was a great sound system. Inside, it was always a fantastic.
And in the discotheque room at the back, the light show was good in there as well. If you go in there now, it's obviously much more sophisticated than what it was back then.
And the money's been spent, hasn't it? Matutus has spent the money, hasn't it?
They have spent some money. That's undeniably. Same at University, same at Pasha as well, right? They've changed them a lot, but. We just used to go there. Go like Space on a Sunday was always my favourite.
Well, that was the
big one. We love Space. Get there at 8 in the morning. Sometimes I was go to something the night before. We used to sometimes go to Head Candy at El Divino, and then just go and chill for a bit, and then go to We Love Space. Or sometimes we'd go back to the villa or go back to the hotel for a bit, and then go to Bora Bora, which I've heard is reopening. It's pretty exciting.
We've got Mark actually. He's here. He's the next guest after you from Head Candy.
Is that right? Is that Mark? Right.
That's Mark.
I think I was talking to him actually on Instagram because I played a record that took me back there. It was Stonebridge, Put 'Em High, right? It was like a housey tune. Really, really good record. And I played that on my channel. And I said, does anyone remember Head Candy in Ibiza at El Divino? And it was one of those unexpected, sometimes these clips will get 9,000 views and sometimes they'll get 500,000 views, right? And sometimes you play something like that was a bit, you kind of had to be there to like it. Or not so much actually, because that was in the charts as well, but that was one that kind of really blew up. But it was just packed full of people going, I remember the Head Candy CDs. You remember they had that iconic artwork? Ministry of Sound actually bought Head Candy after a while.
I had that conversation with Lohan earlier. Right. That Head Candy, they bought it.
But that Eldovino, that was a bit of a mad one because, like Privilege, and Space, there were windows to the outside world, which is not something that you always get in the club environment, and can be a bit of an odd contrast. You're standing there like you're kind of at effectively a sort of rave type environment with your friends, and then you can look out over the harbour and see the old town across the thing. That for me is a beautiful classic Ibizan thing that you don't.
I loved it
get
with Eldovino when it was called Eldovino. I loved it. Butterfuck town. All the boats, it was really nice.
Yeah, well, the harbour was a bit of a vibe. I feel like now that the daytime economy has shifted a bit more towards San Antonio
but there's still
now.
stuff. Butterfuck, you've got a Chinois.
Oh, yeah.
So, and Pachar and Chinois. It's always buzzing around. That area's always had a bit of a buzz about it.
There was Bass Bar in the harbour and
Jason Ball,
Jason Ball's place. That was and I remember that was like the pre-ritual back when
the early days it was you go to the rock bar or the bass bar, you go to Ibiza town and then you go off to Pachar or Amnesia or Privilege or whatever it was at the time. That's lacking now a little bit where I think now the clubbers are specifically going there for the daytime parties and the nighttime parties.
Yeah.
So the bars and the restaurants are not doing as well as they used to because people are coming in for 2 and 3 days.
We've got Ushuaia and O Beach, right? And they both definitely offer something that the audience wants. So I wouldn't say a bad word against either of those places, but what used to be a very fragmented scene in San Antonio, West End, where you go from place to place, or in Ibiza town, we'd go to those places.
No, you just spend all day in O Beach, don't you?
So it's but look, everything changes.
Oh no, it's perpetually, constantly changing the way it works. I mean, originally, when Terrace was so fantastic because it was the only one open. So all the other clubs emptied out and everyone congregated at Space, and that's why it had that feeling about it.
Apart from on a Monday when it was all about DC10, wasn't it? Psycho Loco. That was the one day Space didn't open at 8 in the morning, But it was 8 a.m. till 6 a.m, wasn't it? Space?
But there's so many tourists now that that all these places are filling up during the day, and there's a lot of them. O Beach, you've got Destino, you've got Ushuaia. There's so many in that daytime scene going on, and you've still got the nightclubs through the night as well, which is pretty. There's a lot of people on that island now.
Yeah, it's.
I was there first week of the season in April, and the island wasn't particularly busy, but the clubs were filling up.
Yeah.
It tells you it's that club industry is still nothing's changed. It's just getting more and more, and it's longer and longer.
Yeah. It's good. It's nice. It's nice to see. I went over. I've played at Eden. I've played at Ibiza Rocks, Cafe Mambo, High Ibiza. It's like a mad thing for me, just from coming from this background, and my story and the way that I've kind of got to this situation is unusual as well. Not everyone gets it, and not everyone thinks that I've taken a valid route, and that's all right. People are entitled to their opinions. I understand that, right? Yeah. But for me, living this life personally, the only thing that I can do to try and mitigate that is to make sure that I share my platform with as many people as possible. So I'm always helping or trying to play.
Listen,
and
being a
represent
DJ,
music.
don't ever put yourself down about that. You're playing music to get people to dance and stuff. So don't ever think, because the way I got there, you're a DJ. That's you're playing music, making people dance. And never degrade yourself in that way, because how you got there is they've all got their different ways, didn't they?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But it's people are always going to have their opinions about stuff.
No, people will, but take no notice. Honestly, take no notice.
Appreciate that. But I love one of the things that's best about what I do is when you get something from a tiny producer and then you play it and it really goes off, right? It kicks off and there was one, and there's a guy called Declan Knapp who makes all of this kind of it's essentially a type of garage, like future garage, right? He's got his own sound, and he sent me, and he only sent it to me, he did his own edit of Groove Armada Super Styling, and I played it at Glastonbury 2 years ago, and it really, really went off, went off, right? So it became the first record I signed to my label, and because Groove Armada actually liked it so much, they requested a copy of it to play, which is unusual because often an act will play their own version of something rather than edit. But it was such a good update, and it was respectful to the original that they wanted it for their own sets, which is a huge.
But you're helping other people now.
Yeah, it was.
So that's it keeps going, doesn't it? You know, you've got a platform now where you can actually help other people, and that must feel good for you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And the thing is, I'm a producer myself, and I know how hard it is to get music. Even with me,
there's
with
so much music.
It's very hard to get your music out there. And to get
there's
people
a
to
lot of
listen
music
to it.
out there, isn't there?
Very competitive, and there's a lot of people out there that are a lot better than I am as well. You know, and there's a lot of people out there that. That have been doing it a lot longer, and it's not easy to get anyone to listen to, even if it's someone, unless you're mates with someone on a personal term, right? Anyone like these big DJs and stuff, you can send them your music, and you know, people send me stuff, and often I'll miss it in my inbox.
Can you imagine
whatever,
how many tracks Cole Cox must get sent every week? It must be.
There'll be stuff that he's missed that's better than some of the stuff that is not missed, but it's, you know, you can't go through and listen to everything, right? So when you do get something and you play it and it blows up, and then you see that person, you know, years later you see that person's like just making their way through the ranks, and that, you know, that release after release, and they've been signed to a label. It's such a nice feeling to be able to share some of the success I've had in the platform that I've built with other people. That's a really important thing that I'll always do. You know, I'm always doing that.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, like, how many records do you actually own?
I think
probably
I've
a
got,
massive collection.
because I do get like before I started doing this, I've had about 2,000, right? That's my core collection, right? That I built up over the 30 years. It's been augmented because I've been sent a lot as well. And then it's, you know, I get sent a lot of promos and stuff like that. And I always try and play those on my channel, as long as it's half decent, right? Because those are the people that are truly representing the underground, putting the graft in and putting real money on the line as well to press vinyl. So there's that. But also, I've somehow been gifted a few collections as well by people. And this is the thing, like, you know, we were talking about the music earlier, and people can be a bit cynical, and it can be quite like businessy and stuff. But you've also got a lot of people that are just, you know, very friendly, very chill, and very driven by passion. And I've had now on 3 occasions people gift me record collections of a few hundred a time. One of them is
That's
priceless.
very nice.
It's a collection of dub plates from Music House, which was the place where you'd go in the 90s and early noughties to get your dub plates cut, like for vinyl, right? If you're like a drummer, especially in the drum and bass scene, right? If you'd just finished making a track and you wanted to play it that night in a rave, right? Because it was only vinyl technology in those days. You'd go to Music House and you'd have a chat with the guys there, and you'd get a dub acetate or get a dub plate cut, and it would cost you maybe 30 quid. And you know, if you were a bigger producer and you had a bit more money, you'd get maybe 5 or 10 cut, and you'd give them out to the big DJs, because everyone there would be a DJ or a producer. So it became like a social scene almost, like at Music House, right? And actually, the people that were involved in that, you know, the dub plate culture, would probably be quite interesting to, like, for you to talk to. That if you haven't already, you know, that dub plate culture goes back beyond jungle and drum and bass.
What we do say to people, just to let you know, people that have been inducted can have a say who gets inducted.
Oh, okay.
So you can put people forward.
Yeah, that's cool. I know, like unfortunately, one of the guys that was really involved in Music House has passed away, right? But it was a big thing at the time. I got a whole collection of dub plates gifted to me by someone that had bought a record collection, and that was part of it. But he didn't like jungle and drum and bass, but he liked my channel. This guy called Dave, and he just gave them to me free.
Well,
right?
we recently did Andy Wilson.
Okay.
And Andy Wilson was after Jose Padilla died, left his record collection to Andy Wilson.
Oh, is that right?
So his whole record collection Andy Wilson has got.
He's got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like with the dub plates. So for me, I just feel like I'm like a custodian of them, because they are, like, it's in a little way, they are culturally significant, right? There's like Dillinger and Dom and Roland, and there's tracks in there that went on, because the dub plate's the first time you test a track. There's tracks in there that went on to be big tracks, so that would have been the first time that it was ever heard, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like, you know, I'm going to play through them all. I play one every couple of weeks on my channel, so I've got enough there to last me, like, you know, a couple of years probably, and then I'll probably just start again, right? Start over. But I feel like with stuff like that,
2 years later, it'll be fresh again, won't it?
Well, yeah, because, you know, the audience churns as well, right? And also, not everyone sees every post, right? Yeah. So, but it's, I just feel like I'm in a very privileged position to have
there's
that.
not. There's 3 people who've done that to you, so it's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, you know, being left a collection from something is a nice thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And you know, it's sharing that stuff, and it brings back memories.
Well,
but also introduces
these people obviously know you're going to appreciate what that is.
Yeah,
that's
and they
what
know I'm
it
going to
is.
share it, right?
Yeah.
Music is to be shared.
It
That's
is,
why I don't get that whole, you know, there's a lot of gatekeeping, and I get it. DJs want to keep their thing to themselves, and they want to have something.
Well, the classic in the old days was, all the white labels and everything. And the amount, you always knew if someone was a DJ because they'd be looking over to see if they can read what's going on the record going round.
I actually read somewhere, and I don't know if it's true or not, but on the CDJ 3000X, the new one that's come out, apparently there's like a feature or a button that you can press and it actually turns off all of the track information on the screen.
Really?
And it might be one of those nonsense things on social media, right? But I don't know if it's true or not. But you know, people looking over going, I wonder what that is. Because it's such a competitive industry, people want to keep stuff. They like say that you know, if you want to hear that track, you've got to go and see that DJ sort of thing, right? You know, there's a lot of that, and I think that's the modern day equivalent.
Well, we did Nicky Holloway recently,
right?
And you know, his quote was, you know, because they all loved Alfredo. Yeah. He said basically we nicked his record collection. That's what we did. Came back to England with it. You know, we noted everything he was playing.
He was good though, Alfredo. He used to always give the names of, you know, he used to sort of invite people to understand about his music and so forth.
I mean, he was just a, you know, kind of iconic, him and Jose, iconic, you know, formative figures in that Balearic sound that will always be associated with
PP and Mambo. Them early day DJs, they are iconic on the island. You know, and Alfredo's gone, so is Jose. We will do posthumous for those guys. We will award those guys. Which is you know, it was a nice thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you know, they're a big part of the history, aren't they?
Yeah, totally. Along with, like, you know, the guys that set the clubs up as well. You know, like Tony Pikes and Ricardo.
Well, they're all on our list. There's Tony Pike, there's Brasilio, there's Frankie Knuckles, Tony DeVee. There's a lot of people from the, you know, that industry, Jose Padilla and Alfredo. So we will honour all those people.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I actually got to see Frankie Knuckles, like, because I actually got to see him. It was the weirdest, most random thing. It was Festival Number 6 in Portmeirion in Wales, right? That little, where they've got that little model village.
It's a pretty little place.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do know exactly what you're talking.
It's on a hill thing, and it's like a little model village type thing.
And it's all different colours as well.
Yeah, that's it. They filmed The Prisoner there, right? And there was a festival there.
I grew up on The Prisoner.
Oh, did you? Okay, so you know what Portmeirion is there. But it was, Frankie Knuckles played there. It was like a real random festival but it was so far out in the middle of nowhere that
he was a genius though, wasn't he?
Frankie Knuckles? Yeah, definitely. Like Your Love, absolute, you know, classic. Also, the Whistle Song as well is another one I played on my channel the other day.
Whistle Song's great. I've forgotten about that. Brilliant.
Yeah. It was. I remember DJ Magazine reviewing it when it was on their top 100 dance music records of all time, and they said, although it may sound like they've recruited a hod carrier to do the lead, it was actually, and they named the synth
though, didn't it?
It was cool.
It worked.
Track,
I mean, you never forget. You know, that. As soon as you heard it, you knew exactly what it was. As soon as it came on, you know, classic. But yeah, we were one of them people, which is nice.
Awesome. That's awesome. You know, unfortunately, it's we're at that sort of age where
we lose people.
Where you lose people all the time. You know, I was. It was Philip Young, who's part of Mandy. They did that track Body Language, which was one of the big tracks in 2005.
Oh, I love that track.
Right, and later sampled by Jack Jones. But it was that was one of the biggest tunes on the island in 2005 for me. That was one I've got a special connection with because you just heard it everywhere, and it was a bit different, and it was quite. Although it was not, you wouldn't describe it as a minimal house track. It's just like a tech house track, but it was quite minimal for what it was, and it didn't have a vocal in it. It didn't, but it was still so catchy, and you know, and he set up Get Physical Music, and he passed away a couple of weeks ago, and it just seems like every couple of weeks, you know.
As you get older and you get to my age, there's even more people, you know, going. But so as we're talking about music, it's asked the music
so this is the biggest question, because obviously your record collection is vast and all the genres as well that you play. Are there any sort of records that you have played a lot over the years because you just love them?
Your favourite tracks,
Oh, okay. I mean, it's always hard picking favourites because there's so many, but the time in my clubbing history that I look back on the most fondly was when, in the late 90s, when the trance thing was really blowing up, right? And we used to go a lot to the gallery at Turnmills, and that was like John Newman owned the premises, and Tall Paul's his son, and Tall Paul's brother's Danny Newman, who I do some work with. So you know those guys, and Tall Paul was very instrumental in that. He was part of that little crowd of Brandon Block and Brandon Block, Tall Paul, Seb Fontaine. and that were
Healy, all that.
Yeah, Jeremy Healy, part of that kind of cohort, right? That were very much, the sound of the mid-90s housey scene, and those trance records that were played a lot in that era at Bagley's as well, right? On a Saturday night at Freedom. Those are the ones that really kind of, when I hear them, I get like the goosebumps.
Goosebumps,
like
yeah.
Winery
That's
Finery
always a good sign, isn't it? The
1998.
goosebumps. It's always a good sign.
That is, because and trance has got a special way of bringing those memories back, and all the music can do that. But for trance has got a special thing because it's got those those emotive chords and melodies in them, and the vocals. They just fit the experience very well, if you know what I mean.
Fire them at us. Come on, let's hear them.
Yeah, like Binary Finery 1998, Veracota, Carte Blanche, Café Del Mar, Energy 52, which is actually the big mix of that was a remix of a track that came out in 1993. Energy 52, Café Del Mar, Isla, the stuff that Ferry Corsten did. There's so many tracks like Signum, like First Strike by Signum and What You Got For Me. I used to go to some slightly more underground trance nights as well at the Fridge back in those days, like Escape from Samsara, nights like Return to the Source and Pendragon, and there was some stuff on Tin Rib that was like more. It was called kind of hard energy at the time, right? Yeah. And it was more interlinked with the hard house sound. So like what Tony DeVee would have played that sort of stuff at Trade, right? Yeah. That was heavier, right? But like Tony DeVee, The Dawn, right? Quite a heavy track. But then when the harmony synth breakdown bit comes in, it just kind of takes it, and it can still take you back when you listen to that stuff now. Yeah. And I like every genre of dance music, but it's that era of trance particularly.
You particularly like
that I've got very fond memories of. Lounge, Drifting Away, Paul Van Dyke, For an Angel, tracks like that. Push, The Legacy, Strange World, Universal Nation, Mike Push, one of the best. I actually remixed one, doing official remix.
I'll tell you one thing I will tell you is that you're the guest that remembers the most tracks. Because we snooker people, when we ask them that question, they DJs can't always remember the tracks because there's been so many. But you're very good at it.
It is hard to. It is sometimes. I was worried on the way here. I was thinking like, am I just going to go blank if you start asking me like what tracks do you like? But it's I guess I've got different genres that I can pull from. But those are the ones that I remember.
You've banked certain stuff. Yeah.
Solar Stone, The Calling. It's got like a really long extended guitar section in it. The first time I ever heard that on the dance floor at the gallery, I was just like, what the hell is going on? And then it comes back in, and you sort of remember those things. They're distinctive and they stay in your memory.
Brilliant. There's plenty of us to work with on your clips of the music. There's plenty to work with there.
Okay.
That's
100%.
really good. That's very, very good.
Also, what have you got coming up in the future?
I've got a pretty full summer of touring, and I'm headlining some festivals, and then I'm appearing at some other like really good events. Like I've got a real variety. So I'm playing at Boomtown, I'm playing at Hideout. I was at Snow Bombing. I'm headlining like a festival in Essex that's a much smaller. It's like a 5,000 cap festival, and that's really exciting because you get a longer set. And that's Secret Island Festival. I'm playing at Move In Festival. I'm playing at 90s Fest, so that'll be going, and I'll be getting out. I'll probably play all those records.
Overfest yourself.
I'm playing at. I think I've got one. I think I'm playing at Universe in August, so that's exciting.
Amazing.
I've got. I'm playing at a nightclub in Copenhagen. I've played at a UK Garage Night in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago. I just come back from playing a sick event actually called Baltic Weekender in Liverpool, where it's like a street party in an area called Baltic.
I saw that actually on socials. Was that good fun?
I can't believe how good that was.
Yeah.
Like, it was like the area that I was playing it was just a street party.
And no one had their phones out either.
No.
They were all dancing and having a good time.
No, it's
I think the tide's turned on that phone business, isn't it? We talk about it a lot, obviously. And, I think people are getting the idea that it's dance music. They should really be dancing to it.
I've got an opinion on this, right? Firstly, there's an inherent bias built into people's opinions about phones, because if you only ever if you form your view about what the dance music seems like now by looking at social media, inevitably you're only going to really see the events where everyone's filming it the whole time, right? Because if there's an underground party that you go to where you have to put your phone in a bag, or even like most of the events I play is not
I don't agree with that part of it, because your phone's your phone, and we're all addicted to them anyway. But they're actually standing there for hours and just filming the DJ. That's pointless. The one bit.
I agree with that, but I also think that the things you're going to see the most of are the ones where most people are filming. There's going to be lots of events where people aren't filming it very much, right? And those ones people don't get to see so much. So inevitably, if you're like an older raver and you look and you see. And there's also some scenes that are dystopian and unforgivable, right? And I'm not making any excuses for that. When you see a thing and it's like everyone's standing there filming, you just think like, what are you doing? But there'll be times when when I'll come on when you first come on, there'll be a few people that film the first drop. Or if I play something, it's a hot record or it's got a massive build up in it, and you will see like some of the audience, like 5-10% get their film out. Because
which you don't mind that. That's all right.
I haven't got an issue with that, right?
No.
But the issue comes when people see
when
these...
there's 10,000 of them doing it.
Yeah. But also, that's one moment in time. When Fisher first comes down from the ceiling, obviously people are going to film that. It's a spectacle, right? It doesn't necessarily follow that the entire night is everyone standing there filming it, but some people will assume that that's what it is, and they'll then denigrate the scene and go, "Oh, it's rubbish." And I get annoyed at that because I'm putting all my whole effort into trying to build something that's positive and constructive and fun, right? And for people just to and half of these people would probably actually really enjoy like coming along to an event if they knew the right one to go to. If you, the another thing at the moment is the scene's been very successful commercially at the moment, and with that you get a lot of people who will come in and put their head around the door to go along to a rave to see what it's about.
They're not particularly into the music as such, but you're right. The scene is huge right now. So there are a lot of people that. Maybe not. They're not really into dancing to this music. You're probably right.
And they don't necessarily understand the etiquette or the culture, or particularly even like the music. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But anyone can go along to any event that you can buy a ticket for. But they're the ones that are going to come along, film it, and whatever. And I think maybe that will die down a bit over the next year or so.
I think the tide has just started to change. The people are doing it less.
It will become a bit more just about having fun, partying, hedonism, and music, and the culture.
The fun bit.
I also think, actually, I've got a theory. I'd be interested to hear your view on this. I think that a little bit of the culture was lost and is recovering now, but was lost during COVID. I think there was a fire break because normally you'd get people going along with their older brother, their mates and stuff, and they'd see how to behave at an event, and they'd go, right, so you do this, you do that. This is the culture, right? And then you have a year and a half of almost no events. No one goes along to anything, and then you get a new generation that go along, and they don't know that.
Of course, it'll have an effect. Yeah, something like that.
That's a good theory, actually. That does make sense.
The lockdown will have an effect on all sorts of things in the world. I mean, it's first time it ever happened. But business. Listen, the biggest club in the world, like the privilege, was Privilege is now Universe. The present owner managed to buy the other guy out and turn it into what it is now. Because as I said earlier, it was getting run down. It was not the place it once was. And so it's managed to, through that lockdown period, buy the other fella out. So lots of things changed when that period in the world was very, very pivotal to lots of different stuff. They were saying that children at school, it would have affected their schooling and all sorts. So it affected everything, didn't it?
It was a very odd period, but that was one of the things that motivated me to make some content on social media. Because I thought loads of people are watching this at the moment. Like,
is that when you really got going with it? It's pre-lockdown.
Exactly.
You're not the only one. I mean, Guakwani, I think he started doing the DJ thing, didn't he? Because he was famous for the TV and stuff, wasn't he?
So he was. So he actually set up a whole. I guess you could describe it as a small movement, right? Because he set up a whole thing, and he was playing. He was doing DJ sets, and he built some. He built some traction.
Now he's doing playing headlining all over the place, isn't he?
Totally.
Fantastic. Good on him.
And the thing is, he was bringing genuine joy and relief from the tedium to people, and that's what I was trying to do as well. I actually did quite a lot of. I didn't mention this before. I actually did quite a lot of live streams on TikTok as well. So I'd be live streaming, and I'd do vinyl sets on a Friday night, and then I'd start having a few drinks and whatnot, and I'd be DJing, and like sometimes I'd play for like 4 or 5 hours because I was standing. I've got a big record collection. There was no reason for me to go anywhere. And in the end, my wife would go to bed and all that.
Leave you to it.
Yeah, leave me to it, and I'd still be on there at kind of 4:45 in the morning.
And it's still filming.
Just doing the live streams.
How long is the live? Can you just film a live stream for as long as you want?
It's just live.
Live, right?
And actually thinking back, that was the point when people started going like, you should get booked to play somewhere, you should put on a night, and I was like, there's no way, no one's going to want to come and see like me like DJing, right? There's not a chance, right? So I just resisted all of those calls for absolutely ages, and in the end, finally, I put on this headline show at Manchester, like after having my arm bent, I was like, right, okay, so many people are asking now that if I don't do it, it's all just going to go away. And I was absolutely desperate to be a DJ when I was younger, but it didn't work out, and I didn't put enough effort into it, and I ended up going off down this route and doing a sort of safe
Well, it's all
corporate
worked
career.
out well now, mate.
Yeah.
It's all worked out well. So
You're,
listen, Fish, we could talk all day because you're obviously a really good talker. But we have got other guests we've got to do today. But Fish, the whole reason for us, you being here today, is we're going to induct you into our global club and dance. So,
Yes.
young man.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me a young man as well. Is this for me?
That's for you, yeah.
Yes.
No way.
Yeah, this is for you.
How good is that?
Yeah.
Mate, that's absolutely brilliant. I love it. Thank you.
Listen, you've been doing it all your life, and you love the music. So it's not just you're a phenomenon right now because of social media. You've always been into the music.
Yeah, your soul's ingrained into the culture.
Yeah, so that this is a reward for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
this means a lot to me. Thank you. It's been
absolutely.
absolutely lovely talking to you.
And you
So
too. Thank you.
Yeah.
for
Amazing.
sharing. So that's all we have time for at the Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and to follow us on all our platforms. See you soon.